Hi everybody, Kimberly here. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Akashic Records, the Akashic field, and this vast spiritual resource, and really what I think of as our spiritual home. Your connection to the Akashic field is your birthright. You're already connecting to it, whether you know it or not. And I believe there's so much information out there about the Akashic Records, perhaps a lot of mystery around it, and some of the things that we've thought about the Akashic field. I believe it's time to reimagine the ways of accessing, who can access, who can't, how you can access it. And I was just looking at Insight Timer. I have some reviews up, which I love, by the way. I love getting reviews. I think they're really helpful. But I got one super negative review on my Ask a Question in Your Akashic Records meditation. This was 2 years ago, but of course I still remember it. One person said that that's the incorrect way to access the Akashic Records, and the video should be removed, and they didn't remove it. So again, I think that points to there is a right way to do it. There is a wrong way. There are certain people that can do it. There's like the lords of the records or not. And I think it's probably about time to just look at some of the ways that we've conceptualized this space and some of our philosophies around it. You know, the Akashic Records have been referred to in all the ancient wisdom traditions, and I imagine these kinds of conversations have happened over time, but especially now with the rise of consciousness on the planet, I believe that our familiarity with the Akashic space and probably our own ability to bump into it, whether we're practicing intuitive and this is our life's work as a spiritual teacher or a medium, a psychic, a healer, a light worker, or really anyone on the planet has had this connection with the Akashic field, has bumped into it at some point or another, and is probably curious about what was that, and is that my intuition? What's happening? So I believe for all these reasons, it's time to reimagine our connection with the Akashic field. If we haven't met, I'm Kimberly. I am a spiritual teacher. I'm a coach. I have been working with the Akashic Records since I heard this term in 2016 and was introduced to my teacher. I'm very grateful for all of the practices that I've learned from my teacher, and having been in the Akashic Records for hundreds of hours working with clients in their Akashic field, I'm just super, super grateful for everything that has opened up to me as a result of what I've learned in the Akashic sphere. And at the same time, I find myself wanting to pivot and take new approaches than what I was perhaps taught. And so that's why I thought I would share some of those thoughts in this video. So first off, if you're not familiar with the Akashic Records, what are they? The word Akasha is Sanskrit for ether or space. It's really primordial substance. That's the translation from Sanskrit. So if you think of everything that we do as humans, as souls, having a human experience on the planet, every thought, every word, every action has an energetic impact or imprint. So it's the energetic archive of our time spent on Earth. And if you believe in past lives, then of course it contains all of the energetic information of past lives. It contains everything about our current life and future. So past, present, and future are all together because time, of course, is a very persistent illusion. You might even think about it as, some would say, like a library. It's been conceptualized as a library or like the cloud. So all the information is there. It doesn't mean that we want to access it all the time. And it certainly contains a cosmic intelligence. There's a wisdom and an intelligence in the Akashic space. I would say the energetic signature, when I really feel like I'm connected to the Akashic field, it's not that I am in a trance-like state somewhere out of my body, but it's almost like my gaze is towards a feeling of expansion, and it feels like a very sacred space. It feels like a place where there's lots of perspective and scope. I also sense the energy of humor, of lightness of being, and a feeling of deep love. Sometimes when I'm in the records, it's almost as if I feel like there's someone who loves me so deeply, is just shining light upon me. So a real feeling of oneness, of deep acceptance and love. So that's very cool. Now a little bit more technical, the record keepers are known to be throughout history beings who have never been embodied, who maintain the integrity of the archive, so to speak. Some might refer to them as the Lord of the Records. But in fact, when you're connecting with the records, whether you go through the record keepers or a guide or your higher self, it doesn't really matter to me, in my opinion, because in our spiritual side, I believe the voices are more of a choir. One of the beautiful aspects of the records is that they are non-denominational, that they are truly a vast spiritual resource. They've been referred to by in the Old Testament and the New Testament, and as I said, all ancient wisdom traditions, but they are not specific to one religion. In the Bible, they're referred to as the Book of Life, for example. I talk about this on my blog, but my first experience in the Akashic field was this kind of like a remembering. Some would call it awakening experience, but I think of it more as a remembering. I was 5 years old and just watching cars drive by. I was in the back of my mom's car, and I just remember having a conversation with God at that time and asking, like, what is this all about? Like, is this some sort of play that we're in and we're all actors? And it's like I received this strong knowing that, like, yeah, it's like a play. And, what happens is everything has a meaning, and like nothing is by chance. And like everything feels important and everybody's playing a role. And then when you come home to spiritual home or heaven, you replay the movie. This was the understanding that I had. And it's interesting because you could say, well, she's just a child. She was 5 years old with a really overactive imagination. And maybe that was it. But I really had this sense of knowing, like, this is, okay, this is what this life thing is all about. And I will say, even the term Akashic Records, when I put out events called Akashic Horizons or Akashic Insights meditations, my meditation on Insight Timer to access the Akashic Records, I think it's been played over 8,000 times. It's the most played. It's one of the most returned to. And I think there's even a resonance or a curiosity about that Sanskrit term. I think the term itself has a sort of resonance for us. Not only people who are psychics or professional intuitives can access the records, it really is something you're already accessing, whether you know it or not. When you feel like, oh, this feels like a yes, or I feel a sense of familiarity with this person, I feel like I know them. In some ways, you are already tapping into your Akashic field. I think the best way I can describe this Akashic space is it feels like when I'm in the Akashic field, I feel like I can see through the eyes of spirit. I can see through the eyes of my soul. So I might be looking at very human concerns, but I see them with broader perspective and scope and understanding. And I also believe that the records are best suited for guidance, insight, wisdom on very human concerns. So, if someone in a soul-to-soul reading wants me to access their Akashic records with their permission, and we go into their Akashic space, and then they ask a question that really doesn't have any direct connection to what they're facing now in this life, like, what were my past 5 lives? Who was I? And what happened? That if it doesn't directly serve you, the knowing, that it's not so easy to access. That's my experience, at least. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the traditional approach, at least what you'll learn from books and YouTube videos about the Akashic field. First off, there's an idea that only certain people can access them. Again, this might be going away a little bit, as there are meditations like mine and many others on YouTube and Insight Timer about accessing them for yourself. But this idea that only psychics or someone with special abilities can access them, and perhaps again that comes from history, people like Edgar Cayce, who had very detailed accounts of accessing Akashic records for specific people, and he was known as the sleeping prophet. Again, that was 100 years ago that was happening. So I think that there's still remnants of that idea lingering. I also believe that the traditional way still considers that, those special people who can read the records can access them for you on your behalf. And while, of course, that's true, you can also access them yourself. There's some ideas that you might have to go through the lords of the records, or you have to address the masters, the teachers, the loved ones in spirit in order to gain access. I think that information is still out there, for better or worse. Some would say that you have to be attuned to the Akashic field. There's also a lot of information and books out there about practices. So saying an access prayer out loud, reading it silently, lighting a candle, snapping your fingers, making contact with your soul star chakra, earth star chakra, blah, blah. There's so much ritual. Again, not that that's bad. I think ritual can be good. We'll talk about this in a moment, but I think some of this is also dissolving. Another idea that I find myself pivoting from is that you can access the records in a state of meditation or a trance-like state only. You have to be in that certain kind of awareness. You certainly can't be driving down the road. It could be dangerous. I'm not sure that that's true. I think especially if you have been in the Akashic field, you're familiar with it, you're comfortable with it, then I believe that you can go to the grocery store and be in your Akashic records. And we'll talk more about that too in a minute. And I also believe that there is an idea that the Akashic records is all about past lives. And certainly that is accessible in the Akashic field, but much more too. Again, not all of this is false, but I think some of these traditional ways of conceptualizing the records are changing, and for good reason. And, we're moving from a time on the planet when we had, the sleeping prophet or the wise one or wise ones, to really being able to access wisdom, all of us being able to access our soul's wisdom, and actually it being vital. So this is what I'm reimagining when it comes to the Akashic field. Reimagining that we move away from aspects of duality, like I'm in the records now, and now I'm not. Or I open the records, and then I close them. I'm either grounded on the earth plane and making dinner for my kids, or I'm connected to the heart of the universe and the divine. So these kind of either or some people can access them, some people can't. I believe that all of this is ready to shift. I believe that the quickest way to access the Akashic atmosphere is actually kind of slow, but it's to know yourself, to love yourself, and trust yourself. And that, of course, is the journey of a lifetime. But the more you know who you are The more you're connected to your body, to your senses, to yourself, to your own truth and wisdom, the easier it will be to connect with your soul self and to see through the eyes of your soul. I also believe that all the rituals of the prayers and saying them out loud and having to go into a quiet meditative trance-like space, I think those can serve us. And again, if you're new to the Akashic Records and you want to go online and do that meditation, then do that. And at the same time, because our brain, sometimes having a visualization gives our brain something to do, and that can be really great. But the intention is really the most important thing. So setting the intention, now I'm going into the Akashic field, I'm going to see with the eyes of my soul, I'm going to see with the eyes of spirit, and see what opens up. So I believe that life now is asking us to live in a state of transcendence, to live with our feet on the ground and firmly connected to our soul. Again, I'm not saying that this is easy, but the duality of now I'm at the mosque or the temple or the church or the yoga class or in meditation, and now I'm picking up my kids from school and I'm in traffic and trying to find a parking space, that actually all of this wants to come together. And I believe the opportunity is to connect with our soul self and the Akashic space at all times. Because the information in the Akashic field is directly related to your life and your journey and your soul's path and promises and purpose, you're already accessing it. And you're getting information through your intuition, whether you know it or not, whether things feel like a yes or yummy, exciting light, or things feel like a no or their stuckness. I also believe that the Akashic field is like a breath away. It's right here. I also just want to speak to people who are having your records read for you or you're reading the records because, and I'm curious about your thoughts on this, so please do share in the comments. I myself have found that when someone says, oh, they're saying, the guides are saying, or the record keepers are telling me, and it feels like there's, again, this like levels. Kimberly's down here, and then there's the reader, and there's the Lord of the Records, and there's all this information up here, and it's being sent down. That does not feel as empowering, as yummy, as resonant as what I do now when I work in the records. I ask someone to energetically take my hand. It's almost like our arm in arm. We go into the Akashic field together and explore this space. And we look together. And, maybe this is also my background as a coach. But certainly I do not speak on behalf of them. I do not say they tell me, or I really try not to, even though that's the way I learned, because I recognize my own limitations as a human. And I'm getting words, images, knowing, feelings, and I'm translating them using my intuitive capacities, but they're only as great or only as limited as I am. So I think just a word of caution that old way, like they're telling me and your guides are saying, I feel like I'm moving away from that and moving much more to a soul-to-soul approach. And I actually believe that all intuitive work should be done in a very much soul-to-soul, empowering the client much more than a definitive, this is what your guide is saying. It's a confidence, and I think we can hold confidence and tentativeness at the same time. Because in the end, what we're looking for is resonance with the one who's being read, so to speak. I believe a lot of people know this, but There's much more information than past lives available in the Akashic field. You know, anything that's related to you. Things like your connection with your pets, your children, relationships, organizations, clients, food. Really, it's limitless. And there's also so much creative inspiration available in the Akashic field. So if you're writing a blog or a book or a screenplay or creating a piece of art, those have their own energetic archive as well. So because you're connected to it, all of that information is available in the Akashic field. So everything from healing and creativity and wisdom and guidance and things about your soul's pathway and purpose and soul contracts. You can tell I love all this stuff. Channeling wisdom, support for public speaking, or again, writing, art, music, dance, poetry, photography, social media posts, really any possibility. I hope this video was helpful to you. I would love to hear your comments, whether you're new to the Akashic field, if you've been working with the Akashic Records, if you're curious about it, and if you have questions or comments, please, write down there. I will link a meditation. Again, that's just one way to access the Akashic space. Please join my newsletter, newyorkminutes.org, down here, and I'll keep you posted on all my events, free and otherwise have a great rest of your day. See you soon.